SoCalQOL. It is Sunday. Happy Sunday. And we are kicking it off again with our quote sessions episode 3. Amazing. And we are also going back to our roots of extreme ownership with Jocko Willink / Leaf Babin. And yeah, I can't say enough about this book. It definitely encompasses all it takes to be not only a leader, but a good leader, someone who is going to inspire others, do what's best for the team versus themselves, and yeah, just overall just make an impact on other people's lives. And that's something that a lot of leaders nowadays can't say. When you step into that position, whether your job, your organization, your business, your family, wherever, whenever, you have to have this mindset. You have to know that everything that you do from here on out is your responsibility, and anything that goes wrong underneath you, underneath your tier or your rank or your title or whatever in your department, it's your fault. It's not the person below you's fault. It's your fault because you weren't there to, foresee a problem or to plan ahead or build systems or build at scale or whatever. And so, yeah, I just think overall, this book encompasses everything that we should be looking towards becoming as leaders in this free world that we live in America. And there's no excuse. There's no excuse for blaming other people or pointing the finger. So with that being said, we're going to jump back into it. We are at chapter 2, and this chapter is entitled No Bad Teams, Only Bad Leaders. So our first quote comes from page 53, and it says, I did my utmost to pass on to them everything I wish someone had taught me prior to leading in combat. And full disclosure, we are talking about the battlefield in this book. So if you see the terms like blood and death, and you don't have to think literally, or you don't have to think literal in those regards. But sometimes, in our company, our livelihood, other people's livelihood, I mean, there could be death involved, blood involved. Like, if you're an officer of the law, or if you're a firefighter, or if you're, let's say you're handling people's finances, and those finances, if they go down far enough, people will, take their own life. Or, I mean, I don't want to be all morbid all of a sudden, but like, that's the reality. Like, people in this opportunity, a way to get away from that, a way for us to paint a better picture. And yeah, so obviously this book comes from that world, but we're going to think of it, theoretically speaking. Or combat wouldn't have to necessarily mean physical combat. It could be combat of the free market, combat of our finances, combat of our family life. So I believe that every good leader who does their job well is constantly communicating their own failures in their team's communications. If you do a podcast, which I think is amazing, but internal communication in that way, you need to be passing on as much information as you can and doing things to teach others, so that when they become leaders in their own department, world, family life, whatever, they're going to actually look at it the right way versus just assuming that everyone's going to do all this other stuff for them and not have to really work hard, just, get a paycheck or, have a title of whatever. And that's all it takes is just that. And that's truly not the case. It never has, never will be. But unfortunately, not a lot of leaders and the higher ups in this world know that. So I'm here to tell you that right now. If you're not teaching other people passing on the information that you wish you had passed on to you prior to your position, then you're fucking up, and that's not right. So, next one comes from page 54. Says, when setting expectations, no matter what has been said or written, if substandard performance is accepted and no one is held accountable, aka if there are no consequences, that poor performance becomes the new standard. Damn, that's good. I don't think people think of it that way. I don't think the higher ups, the top of the food chain, the CEOs, board of directors, whatever, I don't think they realize that when certain things aren't held accountable, that ends up being their standard. They don't look at it that way. They see themselves as like, oh, we're always striving to be the best. We're always, making, huge strides, and we're, always thinking about the future and, working long hours. It's like, well, no, actually what you're doing is you're lowering expectations. You're, building these long hours as a necessity to show, how much, work you guys do, but what kind of work is actually happening? Are people, dilly-dallying in the morning for a couple hours before they even like open up their emails? Or, like what gets people motivated? Do you even know what gets people motivated at your workplace or your job or your company? What is the energy like? What's the culture like? Are those people inspiring other people in their departments? Like, you don't know unless you know what's actually being held responsible for. And those substandard performances by people underneath you, remember, because it's your fault. Everything is your fault. And those subpar types of achievements are something that you probably wouldn't even blink at, let alone acknowledge as a good thing. And yet that has become the standard. That mediocre type of achievement for everyone else underneath you think that that's the way it should be done. And then when you get substandard performance below that, that becomes your new standard. It's like, are you crapping me? Like, how is this even possible? How does this fall through the cracks? How do leaders not realize how terrible their performance, is as a leader, if they can't look at the whole big picture, the whole culture, the whole regime, and realize that it's because of them, because of their lack of leadership and their lack of sacrifice. Yeah, you might have to work extra hours to get Johnny to understand the process or the system or how to do something. You might have to teach them multiple times to do the same thing. And yes, you're going to have to change it up. You're going to have to communicate differently. Either it's your fault. So make sure that you do your work. And if you can't do it, then maybe you're not a good leader. Sorry. Maybe that industry is not for you. Or maybe you just, if you're going to give up on that person, because you're not really giving up on the job, you're giving up on the person. And if you have the power to essentially say, hey man, this just isn't working out, I apologize that I'm not able to give you what you need, but at the same time, maybe you're just not in the right place to be that. Like, that's a decision as a leader that you might have to make. And, it's your fault if they have to, get fired or, step down or whatever, but at least you made the decision. At least you were a leader in that way. And you did the last resort, and because sometimes that's going to happen. But for you to allow those subpar standards as the norm and just be like, well, that's just how he does it, like, I guess it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's definitely not okay. And you need to change something about it. Otherwise, your ship is going to sink. And a lot of people don't do that. They let this ship sink, even if it's super slow and it takes a long time and a lot of money, and a lot of resources, and a lot of people's livelihoods. They will let that happen because, you know what? Job security. Being a leader equals having a job. So I'm going to stop there on that one. Hopefully we're going to get through 2 chapters today, like we did, I think, last week. 2 sections, I should say. Next one comes from page 55. It says teams need a forcing function to get the different members working together to accomplish the mission. And that is what leadership is all about. So I'm going to reread that. Teams need a forcing function. So that to me means they need either on the job training, or they need the the blood, sweat, and tears kind of experience to realize that, like, when it's go time, like, we are gonna have to work together. We are gonna have to accomplish a mission that is essentially only going to be capable of us accomplishing with each other. And if I as a leader can't develop that type of routine and schedule, or exercise, then odds are, if it only happens when the job needs to be done, you're gonna probably fail. And instead of you failing in practice, you actually fail in I should say, if you fail while you're rehearsing it, that's way better than failing at the actual practice, at the actual trade or situation, service, event, whatever it is. And I don't think that ends up becoming a priority for most leaders when they set up a time or they set up a team to think like that. They might think rehearse or prepare or plan, but are they really thinking like, no, like it needs to feel like it's going to feel like they need to know how stressful it might be, how much pressure is on them. And then in turn they're going to figure out who can actually handle the pressure, because some people can handle pressure differently, especially in different types of accomplishments or tasks or whatever. And like, I would say I could handle a stressful situation playing music way better than like someone like my wife, because my wife doesn't have the experience in, one, music that way, but two, she's been on stage before, and she can communicate over a microphone like nobody else, way better than I can. And yet when it comes to the music side of being on stage and performing and all that stuff, like, I kind of have a one up on her because I've had the experience. Versus if it was the same thing on stage, but all of a sudden you take music out of it and it's now like dancing. My wife used to be a dance teacher, so she could handle working with all the people, making sure people get communicated to the right way, so on and so forth. So, but you don't probably realize the extent of that pressure until you actually rehearse it in real time. So definitely try, as a leader, you yourself, or if you want to recommend something for your team member, your team leader, your boss, whatever, to set up, even if there are kind of routine, because it's going to help get people to realize what they're up against. And yeah, I think too many people just assume that just them showing up is enough, when at the end of the day, if you can't deliver a certain type of standard, then you're probably not going to want to be there. Not because you're not going to do the job right and you're going to let people down. More so, like, it's probably just not good for your health, and you probably shouldn't put yourself in that scenario ever. And it's okay if you're not capable of being in that situation, because we all handle stress differently. So forcing functions. Last one in this chapter is from page 62. And it says, right after I take a drink, their success illustrated once again the leadership is the most important thing on any battlefield. It is the single greatest factor in whether a team succeeds or fails. So once again, just putting into context the battlefield terminology. The battlefield could be your workplace, could be an event, could be a function, could be a family gathering, whatever. Maybe some of us would actually be better off if we thought of family functions as a battlefield, but that leadership is what needs to happen in order for certain things to transpire, whether it be accomplishing a goal, implementing a system, having a successful process, just overall teamwork, functionality, sustainability. I mean, it's just like, if you can't do the same thing over and over again in these high intense environments, like a battlefield, then how the hell are you going to do it when it's 75 degrees, sunny skies, everyone's all clean, nice, and ready to go, rested, versus like no sleep, raining, 100 degrees or 40 degrees, and everyone's just about up to here with everything and everyone. You need that type of leadership to communicate what needs to be communicated. Otherwise, you're not going to win. You're going to fail. So, next chapter. Oh, wow. There's only one quote. That's cool. Maybe we'll do 3. Yeah, let's do 3. We got time, right, guys? Chapter 3 is simply called Believe. And this next quote is from page 76. And it says, if a leader does not believe, he or she will not take the risks required to overcome the inevitable challenges necessary to win. So believe, to me, just from reading this and pulling from context, but also pulling out of context, because you have to believe in not only yourself but your team. And believing in your team, it might start all the way back in day one when you meet them all. It might start back when you hire someone. It might start back, when you get hired to fill a certain position. And, you need to believe that, one, you can do the job. So, if you've been told these are the expectations that the organization, the company, you as a business owner can see needing to happen in the industry, whatever. If you don't believe that you can accomplish that, then you've already lost. You're going to lose regardless if you have the best team, the best situation or scenario, the best, I'm trying to think of one of the other words, just all around the perfect scenario, the perfect storm. If you can't believe in yourself and the people that you have to work with, then you might as well just tell whoever that it's not going to work out. But unfortunately, once again, because of job security, because of denial or whatever, they just assume that, it's going to work out somehow. I mean, we're going to go through it. We're going to have to do it. So, but that doesn't mean you're going to take the risks required. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to overcome the challenges. You're not going to be able to see into the future what you're supposed to be expecting in your head. You're setting your every type of scenario, good or bad, and you don't have backup plans. If you don't have backup plans, like you need to believe that things aren't going to always go right. And if you're always in denial of that and thinking that everything is just it's going to work out just the way you thought, then you're screwed. But by believing in yourself, to being able to go through those things, accomplish those things beforehand, the pre-production side of setting up anything, to then going through the actual event, and knowing who you have, knowing your team, knowing everyone's individual pluses and minuses, and knowing who you can reach out to at certain times to essentially step in where you can't because you have to go do something else or put out another fire. Belief's huge. And you might relate belief to something like, you've been in the industry a long time. You're, maybe you're just like over trying to change things, and you really just want to have the certain life you've had till you end up retiring, or till the industry, dies off, or whatever, or you win the lottery. But even in that moment too, you probably don't believe that you're going to be someone who's going to push the industry forward. You're going to develop the business and increase sales, or take take whatever group of people you have to the next level. And that's, I think, a huge part of being a leader, is being able to always be pushing forward, to moving forward in whatever you're accomplishing or trying to do. Or, even if it's the same thing, the same routine, you still need to develop new technologies, or even see the future of it. Because even though it might do the same thing every time, it might have the same process and system, there's other things that can come in to make them faster, other different types of things that you can implement to have everyone have a better quality of life, or just make it overall a better win for everyone. There's benefits in there somehow, some way, even if it's the same functionality. So yeah, you got to believe in yourself just for that reason. And a lot of people get stuck in just what they have. They see the past. Like I've heard this excuse used, like, I've been in the industry for 20 years. Well, depending on the industry, actually I should just say, regardless of the industry, 20 years is a long time. And if your company, your business hasn't evolved in 20 years, you're screwed, man. Like, there's no way, ifs, ands, or buts around that one. And so if you're trying to keep everything the same, you're basically just acknowledging the fact that you don't believe that you can take it forward. And all you really want to do is just have job security, wipe your hands off once you're done and be like, well, yeah, I did my job. No, that's not what being a leader is about. And so if you don't believe in yourself, you won't believe in your team, you won't make the right sacrifices. Like, I believed in certain things that I was a part of and I was leading, to the point where I knew when to actually end up stepping down, because I knew that I couldn't take it farther, not because of my own qualifications or my own commitment. It was more so what I was given via the organization, the company, the business, whatever. They weren't going to give me the tools, resources, and manpower necessary to accomplish the goal. But what I do know a lot of times is, once you have a void, a lot of companies and businesses and the leadership of that will end up finding replacements that will end up being able to take it where it needs to go. And they'll see the void as like, oh, we actually need to invest more into this, versus when you had something that was safe and, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Well, if you have one person that's doing the same job over and over again, but you don't see them as being like the future of it for whatever reason, and I'm talking from like the head ups, then of course you're not going to like, they're actually going to be able to accomplish, if they do get these things, X, Y, and Z. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just, basically pass it on to the next person. Make your ceiling the next person's floor. So it's constantly growing. It's constantly going up. And that's happened. I've seen my position, maybe it's not even filled, but the position that I leave ends up having a void, and they end up replacing it with something that I could have never been able to convince them of, unless I stepped back, unless I showed them, okay, now that I'm not here, what are you going to do? Even though I've said everything I need to say. And it's funny too, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a tough conversation with, the heads up, the higher ups, and I'll tell them, like, these are the things that need to happen. If they can't happen this way, then I can't do my job. So I'm going to have to step down. And then in that regard, they end up taking your advice anyways, either replacing you and having them do that, or give them the resources to do that, or they don't fill your position, but they end up giving the team what they need to accomplish the goal at hand. And it's like, just makes you laugh, because it makes you realize, especially as a leader, like, sometimes the best thing you can do is take yourself out of it. And once again, not because you're not willing to do what it takes and put yourself at risk or overcome some kind of challenge. It's more so like, it's like a stalemate. It's like, you're constantly moving back from one block on a chessboard to another, going back and forth, and you're never going to kill the king, and you're always going to be jumping back and forth from one block to another because there's not enough pieces for you to actually get fired or have to quit. But you're in this little stalemate where you're just constantly going back and forth, and that's no way to live. That's no way to run your life. And so sometimes the risk is quitting. Sometimes to overcome an inevitable challenge is to release the position. And you're going to have that in your life if you're a leader. Does it suck to happen? Yeah. But then you get to go away and hear from the grapevine, oh yeah, that department grew by 50% when you got left, or that, that situation, they invested tons of money into it and now it's flourishing and everyone who's there is happier. Cool. That's exactly what I wanted people to have. I wanted people to have a platform, a place, an opportunity to be developed and to do what they felt called to do. And it wasn't going to happen unless, and it's not even about taking the credit, but it's literally like, I can't even take credit for any new developments because they're not going to acknowledge what I do, as a good thing, I guess, as they're not going to acknowledge the effort that you're going to be putting in for the rest of your life if you stayed there. So, and see that as like a positive thing. It'd probably be actually a negative thing if you think about it. But instead of just being in that middle ground, sometimes you really do just need the risk at hand as a leader is to give it away to the next, person that, your leadership believes in. But the best businesses I could say is they are constantly developing their leaders, constantly investing in them, giving them the reins to maneuver the department, the position, whatever, into where they feel like it's going to go, and then trusting them. A lot of businesses, a lot of higher ups, they don't trust, their teams enough to give them what they believe they need to be successful. And that's unfortunate, but that's also part of the process of being a leader. There's going to be times where you're not able to accomplish what you need because you don't have 100% of the trust. You don't have, your company, your business, your organization doesn't have your back, and that's going to happen. So the real question you need to ask yourself, though, is in that situation, what is the risk? What is the inevitable challenge that you want to win? Where's the win in that? The win is that you leave so that someone else can fill that spot and hopefully, fingers crossed, do what you saw, and that's a risk. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we can do 5 more. No, you know what? I'm just gonna sum up. I feel like two a quote sessions is good. 2 chapters of quote sessions is pretty good. I can't see how many. We're only not even halfway through yet, but with the whole book. But yeah, obviously, you guys, I have a huge soft spot for just leadership in general, developing other people, building up a community, a standard and a culture everywhere, anywhere I can, whether it's my own thing, whether it's a company I work for, the businesses I've worked for in the past, the organizations that I've helped with trying to grow and just be better. And so this is something too, I didn't think that this is where SoCalQOL could go. Wasn't my intent. But the more and more we have these wellness conversations and these quality of life conversations about individuals and or the groups that they're in, whether it be a business, organization, company, the more I realize that it is culture. It is building standards and keeping things accountable. Otherwise, it's going to feel like you work in an insane asylum, because when standards aren't being met and people are getting away with mediocre work, it sucks as an individual who sees things way differently and who wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. You can't be a part of something like that unless you're always striving to be better. You're always learning from your mistakes, and it's functional. It's cooperative, and it's practical, and the things that you're actually being able to accomplish every day are doable over and over again. And a lot of times people don't realize that when they do drop the ball, they do lower their standards just so they can get out on time or even leave early. I mean, you're really fucking up the business. You're really screwing up the system, and you're building a culture that someone who works for you, underneath you, or under your wing could see that as the standard. And then they're going to be half-assed. And then lo and behold, half the company goes down because they were all believing that Johnny over here, who was showing up late, leaving early, doing piss poor work, was what the company wanted. Plain and simple. And that became the standard in at least half the company. And God forbid it seeps over into the other half. But I mean, I've seen it. I've totally seen it where, one bad egg, man, it'll just infect the whole carton. And unfortunately, some of us eggs aren't able to sustain the or not even sustain it, but like have the ability to play the long game. And because a lot of times, especially when you get older and you get into your fourth, fifth, 10th job, you're gonna, or maybe it's your fourth, fifth, 10th business, you're gonna have a shorter shorter winspan. You're gonna have a shorter amount of time that you're willing to wait and be patient for things to change, or for people to come around, or whatever. And but even things that I've had to set aside or leave or whatever, I mean, sometimes the same shit is happening to this day. And that's crazy to me, to think that the functionality of a piss poor standardized place can still function for whatever reason. The money just keeps coming in because it comes in, or the industry's hot, or the organization has a lot of financing, whatever. It's like, it sucks because of just to think about how much could have been done with all of that time, energy, and power behind something that was actually could grow and build its scale. And people wonder why companies don't grow and businesses don't flourish, and are literally just there for the job, the money, the income. And that's not a bad thing as long as they're filling a position that calls for that. But if it's your leaders, woo, I don't want to be a part of that. Plain and simple. And even if I got hired to help a company and they were choosing not to do, what essentially I'm there to do, I'm not going to stick around. I'll be like, hey, you guys figure it out on your own then. If you're not going to take any advice, there's really no reason for me to be here. And some people get really put off by that. When you tell them what they need, or you at least communicate things that you've learned that could be helpful. And they almost agree with you so much to where you just assume you're gonna make the right decision, right? You're gonna go in the right direction, and then they just flip a 180 and go back to their old ways, hire the same people that they fired. There was an episode of 24 Hours to Hell and Back with Gordon Ramsay. This last one with a restaurant in Los Angeles. And long story short is Gordon does his thing. He communicates to the owner that, if this person doesn't get fired, then you're basically, your culture here, your team is going to be toxic, and it's going to go down, regardless of all the stuff that I do. So unless this person gets fired, then you're going to be stuck, and you're going to lose your job, or you're going to lose your business, and all that money you owe and all that stuff you're going to have to pay out of your own pocket somehow. And, and then being able to then give ownership to other individuals at the company, like, or the restaurant, like the chefs or the general managers or whatever, then they're laying off people because they know the same mentality that Gordon has. If you don't get rid of certain people, things are going to stay toxic. And it's not even like a sacrificial lamb kind of thing. It's more so just like, this is just the way it works, plain and simple. But lo and behold, after Gordon leaves, after they have like a successful business for a day, the owner flips everything, goes back to like the same. I'm not speaking out of context now as far as this guy, but he ends up hiring people that Gordon fired. He ends up, or the other people under Gordon fired. He ends up, letting go of people that he ended up trying to hire, or he said he was going to hire back, because he needed to let go. He needed to literally be a leader by stepping back and letting them run the show, which is going to let him be more available to do other things and build the business in other ways. And yet he can't afford to have a general manager, even though he's $350,000 in debt, and he can't afford not to make money. And the only way to make money is to have a general manager. It's like, come on, bro. So anyways, that example just sucked, because that's something my wife and I always look forward to after the kind of the credits are rolling. They do like a, 3 months later, and we always hope it's positive, but this last time it was super negative. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if they closed their doors already, because that's how that works, But yeah, unfortunately, sometimes when you have those businesses, those jobs that you were a part of, that you were the leader of, and when you leave, nothing changes and it stays the same, because financially they're able to stay in the clear, the black, and they don't have to go to the red. Then they don't have to change. But all in all, guys, I hope this was another amazing Quote Sessions episode, number 3, with our Extreme Ownership book by Jocko Willink. And yeah, just hope this gives you some type of motivation to continue being a leader, to see your leader as a great positive influence in your life. And if your leader's if your leader's your boss, tell them how much you appreciate them, thank them for doing what they do every day, because that goes a long way. But stay sane, have a good night's sleep, and get ready to kick ass tomorrow. Good old Monday. And let's kill it this week, guys. See you later.